guys, what's up? It's Nowell. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to episode 3 of my wedding planning series. Today we are talking about vendors. Vendors could probably be split into like at least 4 different videos, but I'm just gonna combine all of them into one, give you guys some estimated prices, kind of which ones you want to book more in advance, which ones are more of necessity. And of course, if you guys have any wedding related questions, comments, please leave them down below. I would love to answer them. Obviously, I am not an expert. I am just a 2024 bride. It is getting close to my wedding date and I am just trying to hang in there. For starters, let's just go over what vendors you might need for your wedding. So obviously this is going to vary based on your price range, based on your venue, whether they're more of an inclusive venue, they do a lot for you, or you're literally just renting the building, and then also just like your vibe and what you want. But here's the list of vendors that we are booking and I think are pretty common. We have obviously the venue, then we have catering, we have a coordinator or a planner. They are different things, by the way. Didn't know that before, but they do different things. A photographer, a videographer, a DJ, someone to bake your cake if your caterer doesn't do that, an officiant, flowers, hair and makeup, and then invites and signage, which those aren't really vendors. I mean, you do it online or you go to Staples or something like that, but we're including them here just because you need to add it to your budget and it does cost money. So we're gonna skip over the venue because I did a whole video about how to find your venue. If you missed that, go check out episode 1. I will link it up here for you guys. So first we're gonna talk about catering. Catering will depend on your venue. Does your venue require you to use a caterer through them? Can you cater with anybody? Can your Aunt Susie, make up a whole meal for 50 people? I don't know. It just depends on your venue. For us, our venue is requiring us to use a specific caterer. So usually you do your tasting like 5 or 6 months in advance for your wedding. And this is where you taste all your food. So dinner, hors d'oeuvres during cocktail, any drinks, you pick out your drink menu. Do you want beer and wine? Do you want an open bar? What alcohol do they serve? Anything you're consuming, except like I said, for us, our cake was separate. Tasting is important. You want obviously your food to taste good. You want to make sure your guests enjoy it. You want to make sure you have different options for maybe different dietary needs, but it's important. And when we were trying to plan it, they were just not communicating like their availability, which made it hard for me to book a flight. So for any of my future brides, that's an important question to ask. What's the availability for tasting? For ours, like they only do 1 day a month and it has to be a Wednesday, and usually it's between 5 and 7 p.m. So very, very specific. And if that doesn't work with your schedule, like that's a very important vendor. Like you need food at your wedding. I will do a video on the tasting once we've done it and get some clips for you guys. So the price is per head, which means per guest, and they don't require a final guest count until 2 weeks before the wedding, which is super nice because obviously some people RSVP late or they have to cancel last minute. So you obviously don't want to be paying extra for someone who's not going to be there, because this is probably one of your most expensive costs in a wedding, just because obviously if you have more guests, it's going to be more expensive, but it comes to around like 75, 100, and it probably could be way more per person just for food. And then drink is also a different cost. So again, if you have an open bar, that's going to be more expensive. If you have just soft drinks, that's going to be cheaper. Just be aware of that. And for your budget, just make sure you add both of those in. The next vendor we're going to talk about is coordinator or planner. So like I said, those are 2 different things. A coordinator is someone who will not plan it for you. Like they won't be calling vendors for you. They won't be, signing the contracts or negotiating the contracts for you or finding any of those for you. They're there after you've already secured all your vendors. They're like the point of communication between the vendors. Day of your wedding, they make sure all the details are there. They make sure all the vendors are not late. They make sure, your cake is arriving on time. Your photographer is doing this, or the officiant knows where to go. The DJ knows where to set up, what time to start, and like all of those things. So they're coordinating, simply coordinating, which is why they're called a wedding coordinator, not a planner. If you do a planner, that is more like a design consultant. They will actually like find vendors for you, I think. We're doing a coordinator, so I don't know all the details about a planner, but just know that they're different. And at least for a planner and coordinator, I saw, you know, a year leading up to your wedding, 6 months, 3 months, 2 months, 1 month, and then day of. So there are a lot of options for packages. Those range anywhere from like $3,000 to $10,000, like I said, depending on if they kind of brand themselves as like luxury, or depending where you live. Obviously, I think cities are going to be more expensive than not cities. Some vendors will tax you and some vendors will not tax you. So that's also something to keep in mind when you are picking a vendor. For most of our vendors, we talked to at least 3 different people, got their price points, talked to them on the phone, kind of figured out their vibe. Did they mesh with us? Did they not? So I highly recommend talking to more than one vendor in each of these spaces. Just don't go with the first one that you find unless you're recommended from a friend. 2 important vendors are a photographer and a videographer. So Justin and I are only getting a photographer. We are not doing a videographer. We did not feel like spending the money for a videographer, and also we just didn't like the style of videos that we see for weddings. Obviously I do YouTube. I like creating my own videos. I like editing my own videos. So I'm just gonna have one of my friends, he's a bridesman of my bridal party. So I'm just gonna have him kind of get some clips here and there as we're getting ready, and then hopefully I can have someone video part of the ceremony for us, because I would rather have like the behind the scenes, the like talking, how I'm feeling, and get more like the vibes of the day so I could remember that, versus like the serious like cinematography kind of style videos. So we are not doing a videographer, so I can't really speak to that and like what that entails, but we are doing a photographer. We found our photographer from a friend. She's actually used them for like family shoots and maternity shoots. The photographer is pretty expensive. I will say I was honestly shocked at the price. I didn't realize that they could get so expensive, but I did reach out to like 3 or 4 different photographers. But I will say vendors, especially photographers, and it's the same with like hair and makeup artists, they have a base price, a base package, but they will charge for travel. And it's usually, I don't know, like per mile, like $10 per mile or something like that. So the cheaper photographers that I found were actually further away. So then I would have to pay travel costs, and photographers are usually there like all day, 8 hours. So then they also required a hotel that you had to pay for them as well. Which makes sense because you know, they're taking the time to come up here. But we just found a photographer who was local, and the prices, honestly, I mean, there was a couple hundred difference, but the cheaper ones with the travel costs, and then the more expensive one, who I love her work. I love how the photos turned out. They're more like lighter, light, bright. And we also talked about like capturing the moments, not just like the big moments, but like the people behind the scenes or behind the moment. And we kind of aligned on that. And or she seems very organized. Like she already has our timeline. She already has like a spreadsheet. She's on top of it. So I feel very confident in her. And I feel like if we're not having a videographer, we can spend a little more on a photographer. And I'd prefer one who, you know, like knows what she's doing. She's got it on lock. Like I don't have to be stressed. But I will not deny she is expensive. Besides catering and the venue, she costs more than our venue alone. So she is our like second biggest expense after catering. I would say the range, like the minimum I've seen is like $3,000, $3,500. And then you can always go more. With a photographer, you need to ask if it's one photographer or 2 photographers. And then also what is included in the package. Some photographers include an engagement session in the package, some don't. The thing I was kind of confused on with a photographer was like, is there a test shoot or not a test shoot? I had to ask my friends who've already been married, like, do you do a test shoot, or you just pick your photographer based on their portfolio, their work on Instagram, their work on their website, and that's what you do. You just look at their photos. You want to see if, you know, their editing style matches what you like. Is it lighter? Is it darker? Is there more contrast? Make sure that you like the movement in the photo, the poses, all of that. And we did, so that's why we went with the photographer we picked. All right, next up is a DJ, and Our venue actually, right before we picked a DJ, they came out with a notice that they did not want live music there anymore for some reason, and that we could only have a DJ. For the ceremony, we could have live music, but for the reception, we could only have a DJ, which wasn't a big deal for Justin and I because we were already planning on doing a DJ. DJs are cheaper than live bands, if you guys didn't know that. And our DJ actually gave us a little discount because he often works with our venue. So that's another thing to look out for. Your venue probably has a list of vendors that they've worked with before, and some of those vendors will have discount codes like 10%, you know, not much in the grand scheme of things when the costs are so high, but it's better than nothing. Something really important for Justin and I was that these vendors like knew what they were doing. We didn't want any headaches, we didn't want any mishaps, and it's a bonus if they've already worked at the venue because they know how to set up, they know where everything is, they know the flow of stuff, they know the space. So I would highly recommend going with vendors that have already worked at your venue, unless of course they're not available for that date or you just don't like them. But I do think that's a bonus, just in the seamlessness of the chaos of a wedding. Again, with every vendor, there's going to be different levels of packages, but we just chose to stick with mics for the ceremony, music for the reception, yard games for cocktail hour, and then a photo booth for reception. I fully trust all of our vendors just because, like I said, they have experience at our venue. Some of them even know each other. So I just feel like that just adds up for a great day. DJ costs were probably like $1,800 to probably $4,000 or $5,000. Like I said, it just depends on the package that you choose, but those were the costs that I saw. Next up is cake. So kind of important, honestly. Some people do without the cake and just do an assortment of desserts, donut wall, cupcakes, cookies, whatever you want. Like literally your wedding is yours and you can make it however you want. You don't need to stick with tradition. I've seen a lot of people on Instagram do just like a 1-layer teeny tiny cake versus like a 3-tier cake. Whatever you want to do, but our venue did not provide the cake, so we had to outsource that. They also made sure to say it had to be a legit company and that it couldn't just be like me baking the cake and bringing it. I think just for liability reasons. Again, we found our cake maker, baker through our venue in their vendor list. Again, I looked at a couple online, just their decoration, their fondant, how they designed it, and I just liked hers the best. And we actually did a cake tasting back in December and we chose 2 different flavors for our cake. So that is all set up. It was a little bit to figure out if we wanted to pay for her to deliver the cake herself or if we wanted to pick it up ourselves. We just kind of worked it out with her. Again, she was so flexible. So I do recommend working with vendors who are flexible about your price range and your budget. It just makes you feel a lot better and like heard, and honestly it's just more enjoyable to work with people who aren't like making you feel like you have to spend and they're trying to get every last penny from you. So she was super nice. I would highly recommend her. Prices can vary, but I will say it's probably like $300 to $1,000 for a cake. Depends how many guests you're having, how big you want it, how many decorations, do you want flowers on it? She said she recommends getting enough cake for like 80% of your guest count. I think that's pretty smart because not everyone is going to have cake at the end. Honestly, every wedding that I've been to, I've been full before dessert, so I've never really gotten dessert. You're on the dance floor, you're having a good time, you're drinking, like you're not really worried about cake. I think that's a good piece of advice, and that's what we're following, and I think even then we're gonna have extra. So next up is the officiant, which is actually pretty important. The person who marries you, unless you get married before your ceremony. So if you're doing like a destination wedding, you might get married in the States before you travel for your wedding. We're getting married in Virginia, like I said, and we learned that depending on the county, there are specific rules about who can marry you. It has to be like someone registered with the county. It couldn't be just like a relative who, I know you can like get your officiant license online and stuff like that now, but just check with your county and like the rules. Your venue should probably know that. Just make sure it's specific because you want your marriage to actually be legal when you get married. I will say for Officiant, that's probably one of the cheaper ones. I did see pretty expensive ones. This probably ranged from $200 to $1,000. Honestly, for $1,000, I was like, wow, you are really making a bang for your buck. This person is finagling, I don't know what, but people are buying it because they're literally there for just your ceremony, like 30 minutes, maybe an hour. Try to stay in your budget and, you know, cut costs where you can. One thing I will say is we are paying extra for our officiant to be there for a rehearsal because I thought that was pretty important. I think our coordinator and our officiant are the only two vendors who will be present at our rehearsal. Coordinator for obvious reasons, to just time everything, let our other vendors know. And the officiant, obviously I think she is a pretty pivotal point of our ceremony and our ceremony running smoothly. So we just felt better having her there in rehearsal. Pretty much the same exact cost as day of. So we kind of just doubled what we're paying her. But for peace of mind, I think it's just good. It's just better. All right, next up is flowers. Flowers was pretty easy. Again, this is something where you just look on their website, look at the floral arrangements they've done at other weddings. He has also been super nice and worked within our price range. I actually recently sent him a new picture for the bouquets that I want for my bridesmaids, which is actually a little smaller. So we're saving about $40 per bridesmaid. A lot of these vendors you're working with like a year in advance and you don't need to have details set until like a month or 2 months before. So you do have a little bit of leeway if you're planning your wedding, like I said, a year and a half in advance. So that is an upside. He was also one who was able to work with us within our budget and let me know. We had a call and he let me know kind of like the sizes of bouquets, how much they cost, which flowers cost more. Flowers can cost a crazy ton just because obviously the more flowers you have, the more expensive. And there are so many places you can put flowers. Just let me tell you, I did not know this, but like boutonnieres, that's like $10 to $15. Bouquets, bridesmaids bouquets, my bouquet. You can have flowers lining the aisle. You can have flower petals on the aisle. You can have a full arch of flowers. You can have a corner arch. You can have 2 corner arches. You can have flowers hanging off the backs of the chair. You can have flowers before the aisle begins when you like start walking. And then you can also have flowers literally anywhere and everywhere in your reception. We are reusing our flowers from the ceremony to the reception, so we are not buying any new flowers for the reception. We are also using some flowers for our cake. Our baker, she was like, oh yeah, I can just take 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 from your flowers from the ceremony and add it to the cake at the last minute. Flower price range can range a ginormous amount. I think on the lowest side it's probably like $1,500 and on the high side I don't even want to know. But I will say white flowers and greenery and baby's breath is going to be a lot cheaper than any colored flowers. So also flowers that are in season. So if flowers are super important to you, you might want to base the month you get married on what flowers are in season. The last big vendor I'm going to talk about is hair and makeup. So I booked hair and makeup. I have not done my trial yet. I do that 2 months before my wedding, and they said I had to make sure I had my dress just so that they know like the cut and how that will look with my hair and makeup on. For hair and makeup, I mainly looked on Instagram. I would say a very good way to find vendors that have worked at your venue is go to your venue's Instagram. I'm sure most venues at this point have an Instagram, and they will tag, like whenever someone gets married, their photographer or their coordinator or whoever, one of the vendors on Instagram will most likely have a photo and then tag every single vendor that worked that wedding. That's a very good way to, one, find someone who your venue does not supply for you, but has worked at your venue, and then also to just see their work in action. And you can kind of see how everything turned out. So I would highly recommend stalk any and all Instagram pages of vendors, because like I said, they often tag other people they've worked with. And then again, that just creates for another seamless. Vendors who've already worked with each other, they know the flow, they know maybe what to avoid or what not to say, or I don't know, but it just seems like it would be helpful. Then I ended up going with this one just because honestly, it was the cheapest option that I found. And they had people of color on their team, which was super important for me because Obviously I'm Asian, so I wanted someone who was familiar with doing Asian eyes. And then also I do kind of have a diverse bridal party, so I wanted someone who, again, has different shades, knows how to do different eye shapes and skin tone. And honestly, I did not see much of a difference between the makeup artists that I found. So that's why I kind of just went with the cheapest one. I really wanted a company that did both hair and makeup just because I felt like it would be easier. It's just like one team coming in, they're doing their thing and then they're leaving, versus like coordinating 2 different people. They don't know each other. I don't know. I just felt like a hair and makeup team would just be better. I'm sure it's not really a big deal, but for honestly convenience, that's what I went with. So the trial, day of, and then the bridal party, I think, again, the range is probably like 500 per, like 500 for makeup, 500 for hair. And then with your bridal party, I would say it's, I mean, it depends how many bridesmaids you have. That's gonna vary. So I would say like 500 to 1,000 for yourself, and then bridesmaids are a whole different story. The trial is, I feel like, what surprised me. I didn't really put that into cost consideration, but for me, there was a package deal for the trial and day of. So I got, I think, like $100 discount for like bundling that together. All right, to wrap up this video, I'm just gonna talk about invitations and then signage, ways to save money on that. If you guys have any questions about the vendors that I just explained and listed, please comment down below. I'm sure I missed a ton. It's hard in these videos to make sure I get everything that I want said, just because, especially for this video, I think I talked about like 8 different vendors, and there's a lot that encompasses it and just a lot of different stages. And I've already booked all these probably like for at least 4 months now. So I'm trying to like recall conversations, questions I asked, prices, packages, things that you need to know. So I hope it's been helpful so far. So to finish off, just some tips and tricks, and then also signage and invitations. We're doing all emailed invitations except for our formal invitation where people actually pick out their menu or pick out what they want to eat and RSVP. For our save the dates, we sent those via email, which was like $60 versus I think like $250 or $300. So again, it's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but that's money you can spend on something else. And then for signage, I'm actually gonna try to paint some of our signage because I do like to paint. I don't know if you guys know that. And I have all the painting supplies, so that won't cost us anything extra. And then if we do want any other signage, I think I'm just gonna print stuff at Staples. I know they have like styrofoam boards that you can print out, and it's like $15 a sign. So I think that's a really affordable option. I think that wraps it up. Just to summarize, I think for the most part, vendors range between like 500 and 4,000, I would say, on average. You can always spend more, but I think that's the pretty affordable range. So just kind of budget for that. Honestly, in 2024, I think an affordable wedding with all of like the glitz and glam is like 30K. Obviously, you can do a backyard wedding, you can do a courthouse wedding, you can do a 10-person wedding, but I would say for like average 100 people, and you're doing the photographer, the cake, all of that is probably around $30,000 for like an affordable wedding, which is kind of crazy. Like I said, you can always spend more or you can always do it cheaper, but just so you guys kind of, if you're planning on getting married soon, kind of start budgeting that much money that you and your fiance are saving. So I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here. I am losing sunlight and I think I've talked way too much. My voice is getting like hoarse a little bit. But like I said, if you guys have already had your wedding, if you're planning your wedding, comment questions, comment advice, things that you guys did, wish you done. I'd love to hear it, and I'm sure it'd be helpful for other people watching this video. I hope this was helpful for you guys. I want to be like transparent because I feel like the wedding world is like not very transparent, and it's taboo because it deals with money, which is, you know, not everyone's cup of tea to discuss. So I hope these price ranges, these tips, this video was helpful for you guys. Give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out episode 1 and 2, finding your venue, and then finding my wedding dress. And there will be a couple more episodes to come, so stay tuned, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.